What's the question you've gotten so much in this early phase of spring training? And I don't want to blow up Shy or any of our guys because we love all our guys. But what's the one question you get a lot and you're like, this is just ridiculous?
Gosh, you know what? I'm not sure, but I complain all the time about, I've got to meet with our media, after workout every day. I thought, well, in spring training, maybe you could do it every 2 or 3 days. But in all fairness to them, I think they have trouble coming up with questions sometimes because, they don't know what to ask either because they're looking at the same basic routine every day, and it gets kind of monotonous, and they have trouble coming up with things. But, a little bit, this topic's been a little bit about left field and, Josh Donaldson, his calf injury and things like that. But other than that, it's been pretty quiet.
Hey, we saw the team go through what people call the car wash yesterday. The skip doesn't have to go through all that, does he?
Oh, you mean where they take him over under the tent and do all the?
Yeah. You don't have to do that thing, do you?
Well, you know what? I did it about 3 years ago, and then I said, I don't think I'm the guy people want to see on those things anyway. So they nixed it. So it's been perfect.
Yeah. Well, I guess Timmonson is just as bad as the car wash, but
I'm not gonna disagree with you there. John, who's the young guy that stuck out so far? And I know the games haven't started, so forgive me. But of the young guys in camp, who's kind of caught your eye?
Well, actually, there's a few of them. The new kid Guriel, who we signed from Cuba, he really looks like he could be the real deal. Tall, slender body, young kid, great. It's like a great athlete. And when we signed him, we gave him a lot of money, and I can see why. So, he may be a quick comer and be a part of the organization for a number of years. Rowdy Tellez, who's probably our most advanced prospect that's knocking on the door. He'll play in AAA this year as a first baseman. There's a left-handed pitcher named Tim Meza, who's got as good an arm as you're going to see, and if he can harness that strike zone a little bit better, he's got a chance to be really, really good. So, there's usually what happens with an established team and what's supposed to be a good team, you're basically pretty set, but you always get excited about seeing some of the young prospects that are close, that barring any, if you might have an injury or somebody's not producing, and you can reach down and grab one of these kids. So we do have some good ones knocking at the door, and this is our chance as a coaching staff to, get a look at them, and then when the time comes, first impressions are big things.
Is that kind of the thing that you like most about spring training, being able to see the guys that could be next in line?
Yeah, because what happens, when you have a veteran team like we do, basically what they everybody comes in shape nowadays, but they just go out there and get themselves into playing shape and make sure they get enough at bats. And production out of it, your established veterans varies from player to player. But so I think that's what we look forward to the most too, is seeing some of the young guys that, that your highly touted prospects, and we got some good ones that got a chance to be impact guys. And we built a good, strong organization, and the key to that whole thing is longevity. You want to build something that lasts. So there's some pretty good ones on the way. So I think the fans will be happy about that.
Yeah.
John, thank you for reminding me earlier. I probably should ask you about Josh Donaldson. So how's Josh Donaldson doing?
Hey, thank God he's doing a little bit better. He's walking around a little bit today. Just one of those freak things. He was out running some wind sprints at the end of a workout a few days ago and tweaked his calf, and we talk about these guys being in great shape and they come down here and running wind sprints and hurt themselves. So, but we're lucky it was at the beginning of spring training. We're now, time's on his side, and not only that, there's a handful of guys that we've backed off a little bit. They're not going to start playing games right away. Donaldson was going to be one of them. Tulowitzki's another one, and then of course, 2 or 3 guys in our rotation. Just, they logged a lot of innings last year, so we kind of want to back them off a little bit. So that's not a bad thing for Josh. And I don't think it's, anytime it happens to one of your key guys, it gets your attention, that's for sure. But I think it's going to be okay in a couple weeks.
Speaking of questions you may be growing tired of, Jose Bautista had an interesting offseason, to say the least. He ends up back in camp, and seemingly with a smile on his face and seemingly in pretty good spirits if you listen to a lot of the media that have talked to him. Have you seen a difference between Jose Bautista a year ago and a Jose Bautista today?
Well, you know what? He looks better physically to me this year. I mean, he really looks strong. I know he really focused on that this offseason, but really it's the same old Jose. You know, he's having a lot of fun out here, and he's as confident as anybody you're going to ever run into. And you know, I said over the winter in a couple interviews that he's easily as motivated as anybody I've ever been around. So that was never going to be a question. And you know, I'm glad he's back, and I expect him to have a monster year. He's always been that one guy that, you know, always seems to rise to the occasion. And, you know, last year was kind of a frustrating year for him. You know, he had those freak injuries, and that set him back, and he probably missed about 6 weeks. So you take that away, and, you know, he's still sitting on a very, very good year. But, you know, he's got a lot to prove. He always has. He was a late bloomer. And then, you know, he made his name here in Toronto, and he's been one of our great players for a number of years. And, you know, he wants to do it in style. You know, he always does. And, you know, I expect him to be really, really good this year again.
You know, I realize times have changed, and guys can last longer in the league than maybe they could have in the past with the physical fitness. But have you been around, and you've been around baseball a lot, a 36-year-old come into shape the way he came into shape this year?
You know, guys, to be honest, no. You know, but he's health conscious. You know, he works really hard, you know, in the weight room and things like that. And you know, Jose is one of those guys. He's going to maximize whatever he does, whether it's on the field in baseball, his production there, and he's going to ride it out as long as he can. You know, he's a pretty good businessman off the field too. He you know, he's taking advantage of that as well. So he's really got it all together. And but you know, it is a young man's game, and eventually it catches up with you. There's no doubt about that. And but I can't recall ever seeing anybody, you know, look as good as he is. And but you know, I don't think it's the end for him. You know, I think he's got a few more good years in him, and you know, that would be big for us this year. You know, he'll be a key guy in getting us hopefully back to the playoffs.
John, I know Kendrys Morales has some pop, and he was brought in early in the offseason, but with Edwin gone, that's a lot of power gone. Mm-hmm. And Michael Saunders, and I know the second half wasn't great for him, but he had some pop in that bat as well. So from a power standpoint, this is a different lineup. Does that mean you, in your own mind, feel like you have to manage the offense a little differently in 2017, or are you going to do what brought you here?
You mean like bunt more?
We didn't say that.
I didn't say that. I swear to God, I didn't say that. Or, you know, bunting or other things.
You know, we'll take a look at it and see how things look down here in spring training. You know, you don't always get a good read in spring training, but then, you know, we'll gauge some things, you know, at the beginning of the season, how that looks. You know, Eddie was a big part of this organization for a number of years, and you know, one of the top power hitters in the game. You know, but Kendrys Morales has been one of the biggest and best run producers too in baseball for a number of years. You know, I like that he's a switch hitter, and I think he's really going to help fill that void, you know, nicely. But you know, when you said Saunders too, yeah, Michael had a big year for us, especially in that first half, and that is a lot of home runs. And you know, right now we're looking at a possible platoon out there in left field. You know, we hope, you know, B.J. Upton bounces back and has a big year. And, you know, Carrera, you know, did some nice things for us. So with that, all that stuff has to play out a little bit. You know, Dalton Pompey, we're hoping he turns into the player we all think he can be. So, you know, time will tell really the strategy that we're going to use. But, you know, in the American League and really in the American League in general, I mean, you do still have to slug it out. And, you know, we really like our pitching staff, but they're going to give up runs. You know, we play in ballparks that the ball flies, and so you got to score to win, and you know, the home run's a big part of that.
I can tell you're still assessing, and that's what spring training is for. And at the end of the season last year, you were on local radio, and you talked about the lineup and expressed interest in getting a little bit more speed and a little bit more balance in the lineup. That didn't exactly work out that way for the offseason for a bunch of different reasons. Does that mean that you kind of have to reassess in this spring training and figure out what this team's going to be?
Yeah, you know, we come to spring training, we got a pretty good idea, you know, who we are and things like that, because, you know, lineup's primarily set. But, you know, things change, you know, things evolve too, and, you know, with some new faces, there's not many of them, but there's a couple. You know, we got to kind of see how all that looks, and Yeah, I've always, been a big fan of left-handed bats, and there's so many more right-handed pitchers out there. And I think Kendry will definitely help balance that out. The fact that he's a switch hitter, I think he is huge, sitting in the middle of our lineup right there. And we're not a young team by any means, and we haven't been known as as a speed team. So it's important that we have a good offensive year, top to bottom with those guys. And I express that, yeah, I like left-handed bats. But we should have enough in there. But you can't always get what you want, right?
Very true.
Yes.
Did somebody sing that?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure it was the Beatles. No, I know it was the Stones. I know it was the Stones.
Stones.
I know it was the Stones. Speaking of getting what you want, are you talking contract with the bosses? And if it doesn't happen by opening day, do you pull an Edwin and say, I'm not talking about this during the season?
Well, I'm not quite as in demand as Eddie was, to be honest with you.
I don't know about that, John.
My power plays aren't heard as loudly. No, you know what? Yeah, we have been talking about it, and hopefully we can work something out. And I love it here in Toronto. It's I've been here a while now. There's been times it's been a rocky road, but things have been really good the last couple of years, and I feel a part of it. So yeah, I think we can work something out. But and we'll see.
No hurry.
No hurry. No. Hey, you know what? I'm a simple guy. It doesn't take a lot of money to keep me happy, and we get paid pretty handsomely in this game, regardless. And I'm pretty conscious of that.
Nice. When I say no hurry, I often think that that's probably your off season too. Are you good at that in the off season? No hurrying. No hurrying. Just kind of taking it easy and
relax. A little R&R.
Yeah.
You seem really good at R&R, John.
A little fishing.
Hey, I'm pretty good at doing nothing. Period. So.
You'd fit well on this show.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.